When I think back on my education and my career, there are two people who come to mind. As a student, when I was in high school, I went to a Catholic high school, and I had this biology teacher as a sophomore, Sister Cyrnea. From the perspective of a 15-year-old, she seemed absolutely ancient to me, but she was probably the age I am now. And she was a crusty old customer, but there was always a glimmer in her eye, and she had a great sense of humor. And I find myself now, as an educator, quoting Sister Cyrnea almost every day. I don't know how much of her biology I remember, but I just remember her words. And she would say things like, "Hickson, you make a better door than a window," if I were standing in the way. Or if you'd ask her where something is, and 9 times out of 10 when it's a kid asking, it's right next to them, she'd say, "Hickson, if it was a snake, it would have bit you." And the thing I loved about that, not only is that memorable, but there's humor embedded in it, and the fact that she always prefaced it with your name meant that she knew who you were. And then they're metaphors. There's instructions in there, but it's in a colorful way, and you have to sort of figure it out. They're almost like little puzzles. And obviously, here we are nearly 50 years later, and I'm still remembering it. But the best thing that Sister Cyrnea said, whenever we were complaining that something was too hard or too boring, she'd always remind us, that's a character builder. And she's so right. And I remind kids of that all the time. Not everything in life or in school is going to be easy. And when you power through and get it done, you're really burnishing your own character. And that was so important. That character has held me in good stead throughout my career. And I wasn't always a school librarian. I had a corporate career before this, working at AT&T, and that's where I met a second very memorable person, and her name was Laurie Hutton Corr. And what I learned from Laurie Hutton Corr was, your job is to be effective. It's not necessarily to be liked. And Laurie was a person who was very good at establishing her personal boundaries. She was extremely organized, and she expected people on her team to be the same. And some people didn't like having those boundaries and those expectations, but that worked great for me. And she was always also good about rewarding herself. She sent herself flowers every week to reward herself for her hard work. And she also treated herself as someone who was continuing to develop and grow. She always pursued personal improvement, and she gave me the great gift of sending me on a personal improvement exercise. It was a weekend-long retreat called Life Design, where I learned so many important skills about identifying what's important to me and setting my own boundaries. So those were two really wonderful models, and I think it's no accident they were both strong and determined women.